Welcome back. Thanks for joining the Fat Boys Dynasty podcast. I am Fatboy Brant, as Fatboy Bo has come down with a little bit of the bug that's been going around. The bug has hit his family and his house there, so I wish him the best. Hopefully, he gets to feeling better and can join us back next week. So I'm going to come at you with a couple players just to keep your eyes on. As we get into the offseason and the playoffs, and what a decent playoffs that we did start with. It all was capped off by that Sunday night game. That was phenomenal. The Washington game with the Washington Commanders and as I stuttered through, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a great game. The rest of the games went just as a lot of people figured. The one that shocked me the most was the Houston Texans coming out and actually showing they belonged to the playoffs and beating the Chargers. In my mind, that was an upset going forward. Unfortunately, all they do is win a date with the Kansas City Chiefs, as so did Washington with a great win for that rookie quarterback and Daniels. They just meet up with a date against Detroit in Detroit. Those two games are going to be absolutely fun to watch going forward. So this upcoming weekend, you got the Texans versus the Chiefs, the Washington versus the Lions, the Rams versus the Eagles, and capped off on Sunday night with the Ravens versus the Bills. Probably the best game. In my mind, the winner of this game, I think, has the best shot at the Super Bowl. The winner of the Baltimore and Buffalo game, I think, is probably my pick for the Super Bowl champs. I'm going to say the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to go on air. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on them. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl this year. That is my take. I think it's going to be Baltimore and Detroit in the Super Bowl. So without anything else, let me jump straight into one of the players that I like. I'm going to go over a quarterback and a tight end today, and Bo's going to come at you, or we will next week with a couple more players. Maybe Bo will sprinkle in with his QB and tight end as well. I'm going to go over this tight end. A lot of people, this tight end class you're not going to get a Brock Bowers out of this class. Most likely, you're not going to get a Travis Kelce. You're not going to get you don't have the Kyle Pitts hype, even though he hasn't lived up to it. Trey McBride is another guy that's been living up to expectations there in Arizona. And I don't think this class really has that tight end that's going to stand out. But this guy right here was actually a shock as I was looking over some tight ends. And that is Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. He's a junior, and he's only 20 years old. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. He had 117 receptions for 1,555 yards and 10 touchdowns this year. He also had a rushing touchdown. I think he carried the ball 9 times when I looked at that. I'm going to go over a couple of his strengths. One of his strengths is he's got great burst speed off the line, and he's got vacuums for hands. He's got great catch radius. He gets great yards after catch. He's going to be a guy that in the future could possibly end up in a good environment, and if he end up as a good fantasy option. We saw this year that just a couple good games, and all of a sudden the tight ends are top 10 tight ends. It's a big position. The margin of from 1 to 10 isn't as big as it used to be. You still have your breakouts in Bowers and McBride, and then you have your Kelce showing out. Andrews had great games sometimes this year. This is a guy that you could be seeing as a good streaming option, or possibly a great later round rookie pick with all the other quarterbacks and receivers and running backs after they fly off the boards. This is a guy that I like. I actually love his hands. He gets good separation, not great separation. He does get good separation, and that's going to lead also into the weaknesses. He didn't see much NFL caliber defenses. So it'll be tough for him, to transition into the pros. I do believe he will do okay. He also doesn't have the great size to be on the or inline blocking tight end, so it'll be a little tougher for him to see the field. He'll come in on good passing downs probably to start his career, and as it gets better and more in line and learns how to block a little bit better, because he does get pushed back off the line when he is blocking. As he develops there, I think that will be the way he sees more playing time moving forward. His route tree will need a little bit of work in the NFL too. A lot of it was off screens and dump offs for him, but I think he's going to be a very valuable option to a tight end needy team. You got some teams out there that are going to need some tight ends. So this is a guy that looking forward to. This could be a Kansas City pick to replace Kelsey. I know they did have their backups had a pretty good year there. As I go through, I think it's the Chargers could use a tight end. The Rams need a good tight end. So this is a guy that you could see going to one of those spots and just keep an eye on him. I don't think you're going to obviously have a breakout tight end this year, but it's always possible. And this is a guy that has great hands. And if he finds his way on the field, he absolutely could make a big difference out there. This isn't a very deep tight end class, so it'll be interesting to see for your dynasty landscapes where some of these guys go. I'm actually getting excited for the draft already, even though it's such a long time away, it seems like, but I'm actually getting excited for the draft to see where some of these guys go. So let's get into the quarterback. I'm going to talk about a guy that most of you guys do know who he is, and that's Cam Ward out of Miami. He is he's out of the U. He's a senior. He's 22 years old. In 2024, he had 305 completions on 454 attempts, 67% completion rate, which isn't too bad. Pretty good for him. He did see, some good corners and good defense there in the ACC. He threw for 4,313 yards, 39 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. I'm going to go over his weaknesses first. One of his weaknesses is ball security. He did have 8 fumbles in 2024, coming out of sacks and getting stripped. So he does need to work on his ball security. He also likes to throw off his back foot a lot. He doesn't when he gets moving to extend plays, he doesn't set his feet all the time, which then he struggles, getting the ball, pushing it down the field, and hitting that great accuracy that he does have when he doesn't set his feet. He likes to rely on his arm count a lot more than he probably will be able to in the pros. So he'll have to work on that. Get him into a good team that needs a quarterback with a good QB coach, and you can see this guy very much become a starter early in his career. I don't think, in my mind, looking at some of these QBs, I haven't dove in deep into them yet, but looking at some of these QBs through college, I don't know if there's a pro-ready quarterback in this class. I know a lot of people think Sanders is. He doesn't impress me a whole lot. I'll dig a little deeper into his tape and into Cam's tape and Milroe's tape and a couple of these other guys here as we move deeper into the offseason and really break down some of these quarterbacks. But I don't really think there's a great quarterback that's going to just come in and light the world on fire like Daniels did, like CJ Stroud did his first year. Caleb Williams actually had a pretty good year this year for Chicago. I know a lot of people don't think he lived up to his hype. He did have a pretty good year. It was rough at times there in Chicago, but that's what the Chicago Bears does to everybody. It gives them the rough of times. So we'll go back to talking about Cam Ward here. He can extend plays with his legs. He's not going to be a guy that's going to burst out and make a whole bunch of yards with his legs. He's going to be, a good quarterback for, in the pocket. He will extend some plays. He will have some rushing yards. He's not going to be a Josh Allen type or a Lamar Jackson that takes off and runs all the time. But he does have the ability to. This season, he really improved on reading his coverages and making audibles and changes and blocking changes at the line. So it was very good for him this year and improving that and learning. And that just shows that he's willing to learn. Now, he does lack some of that leadership and competitiveness, as you saw him quit halfway through that Pop-Tart Bowl there. And maybe that was just him trying to stay healthy. We'll see how that goes during the combine and everything. But he also had great leadership, great command of the huddle, great command of his offensive line during, his audibles and his changes and everything during the season. So he does show the qualities, but are they there all the time? That's where the question will start to arise later on in his NFL career. And then the next thing is he's got good accuracy when he plants his feet. He can really push the ball down the field. He really puts it in tight windows. That will wow you quite a bit. That wow, did he really put that ball where it needed to be in the perfect spot at the perfect time? So Cam Ward's a guy that I expect he's going to go. In my mind, he's probably going to go in the first round. I do think that it will take him some time to develop, so I don't think he'll be a plug and play in your super flex leagues. He will take a little bit of time to develop. I do think he will end up with a good NFL career. I think he'll be a very decent QB for fantasy. I think you should see him creep in to the top 12 rankings eventually. Like I said, it's going to be hard for him to break into the top 5, top 7 without the huge rushing upside that you see with like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So that will be tougher to break those. But I do think he has good enough deep ball. You get the right offensive line, get the right receivers there. And this is a guy you could be talking about getting drafted and plugging in halfway through the season as your QB2 and watching him as he grows and moves forward with the right team. I wish Seattle would have an opportunity to get him in the second round, as we are a QB needing team, but I just don't trust any of these quarterbacks coming out this year that I don't want to see Seattle take one in the first round. Cam Ward is one of my favorites, if not my favorite QB in this draft. I know a lot of people, like I said, are on the Sanders train. I am not completely sold on Sanders there coming out of Colorado, but we'll see. We'll see what the combine and later on in the offseason and everything else goes. We'll see how all that goes as we watch these quarterbacks develop. But Cam Ward's a guy that is really interesting to me, and I really am interested in watching a little more of his film and really seeing how he is and seeing how he moves forward through the combine and everything else. That's really all I got today. I just wanted to get out there and make sure we're still, getting some new players out for you guys to look at, keep an eye on, and start your draft boards up a little bit. Start your thinking, start your motors going, seeing where you're at with your off season, maybe moving around. If you're a QB needy team in Dynasty, he wouldn't be a bad guy in a super flex league to try to move up and go get, as I said. But as the draft gets closer and we look at some of these landing spots or some of these needy teams, we really start breaking down some free agents and teams and what their needs are. That's where we'll start seeing these fall into place before the draft. It's like, okay, this team is really going to probably focus on a quarterback. This team doesn't need one, such as the Falcons. I think they did find their hope in Michael Penix, which I absolutely love. I'm a big Penix believer. Seattle's a QB needy team. The Rams are going to probably need one here shortly. As Stafford gets a little bit older. But yeah, you got some teams out there that are going to need some quarterbacks, a couple tight ends. So there's a few guys to keep an eye on. We'll talk more about it later on. But as for right now, that's all I got for today. And I hope to have Bo back next week. It's a little bit easier with two of us going. But as always, stay hungry and stay fat, my friends.